Actually going to try something new this time.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see how this works. I'm going to see if this mic works better, just going off this mic. So this past week, I had just this awesome dinner with one of my older college roommates, Nathan Rogers, and yeah, it was just this fantastic dinner. And it started off with a happy hour, which then went into just this nice Italian dinner with different courses, and then also digestivo at the end of it. And so there's this order, and in this dinner, we were just able to kind of really reconnect and just kind of really share our hearts and really kind of catch up on all that's been going on in our lives. And it got me thinking that in order for a dinner to be more than just simply a meal, that there's certain parts of it that have to be kind of met in order that it becomes something more. And I think we all have had dinners, whether it's been at a dinner party or perhaps a wedding, where there's this order, this kind of ritual aspect, which allows us to get away from the more superficial and actually be involved in more deeper conversation, to really be more attentive to those sitting at our table, and for there to be a certain transcendence to the meal itself. And today, in the first reading, we hear about basically the prophet Isaiah, and he exhorts the Israelites to observe what is right, to do what is just. And he explains kind of one way that we observe what is right and do what is just, and that is to keep the Sabbath free from profanation. And when this is done, it allows the Lord to bring them up to the holy mountain, in a certain sense, to bring them up to heaven. And so what does that mean, to keep the Sabbath free from profanation? Profane, so profanation comes from the Latin word profanus, which just simply means outside the temple. And so in and of itself, it's not necessarily a negative term, the profane. The profane is everything that happens outside of these walls, outside of this church. What happens in here is sacred. It's that which is set aside. It is that which is holy. It is something different from the rest of the world. And so what does that mean to keep the Sabbath holy? What does it mean for us to keep Sunday holy? It means that we have to keep the profane outside of these sacred walls and to make this day something that is set aside from the rest of the week, that those profane activities, which are not bad in of themselves, work, music, education, hobbies, etc. These are not bad things, but to keep, this day holy means that they have to be kept away from it. And so I mentioned, the ideal dinner, which has its parts, which has, perhaps a happy hour before, and also kind of dessert, and sometimes drinks afterwards, which allows for it to be transcendence. And the same is true for every Eucharistic banquet that we participate in order that it becomes something just simply that we check off the list for the week, in order that it becomes something more than a meal, that it leads to transcendence, that it leads to a deep encounter with our Lord. What it means is that we have to have all those kind of constitutive parts which allow for us to kind of enter into this deep sharing of heart to heart with our Lord. And so what does that practically look like? Well, just kind of like in a dinner, which has kind of a time for a happy hour, which is just a time for us to kind of get rid of some distractions, to kind of unwind, to kind of prepare our hearts. It's in order to whet our appetite for the dinner. And the same is true for when it comes to the Mass. Again, there might be some things which cause us just to kind of rush in here and just begin Mass. But if we want to be good, if we want to really prepare ourselves and enter more deeply in this Mass, it means that we're just not rushing into Mass itself, that whether it's immediately before Mass or sometime in the morning, we're kind of making time to unwind from the week, to kind of move away from those profane things, the things of work, our schools, those ordinary tasks that we have to do, to move from that and to whet the appetite for this Eucharistic feast, the receiving of our Lord. Another thing too is it's kind of like with the after kind of drinks of some wedding dinner or the dancing afterwards, that the dinner doesn't simply just end with a meal, but it carries on to the rest of the evening, that conversations that popped up in that meal are rehashed, afterwards, that it doesn't simply just end with a meal. And what that means for us is that with our Sundays, it's not just the only time we talk about God is at church on that Sunday, but that we try and hopefully make other times of a Sunday times of prayer, or just times for really intentional family time, and just in order for the Lord to work. And so these are just two things that I bring today, because we want to keep the Sabbath holy. We want to keep it from profanation, and that means a certain disciplinary and including all those parts which allow this Eucharistic celebration to be something more than just simply a meal, but that in order that it might be a feast.